The fourth point of the second topic of the 23rd word, God willing. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. The second topic consists of 5 points that are the basis for humanity's happiness and misery. Now, what is it that a person searches for? Happiness in this world and happiness in the hereafter. Since a person is created as inherently honored, the first thing he seeks is his own happiness. And since this epistle shows the path to happiness, it's truly precious, isn't it? Since man was created in the most perfect form and given an extremely comprehensive potential, he has been thrown into a field of testing where he can enter and fall into stations, ranks, degrees, and levels that stretch from the lowest of the low to the highest of the high, from the earth to the divine throne, from an atom to the sun. 2 paths leading to endless ascent and descent have been opened before him, and he has been sent to this world as a miracle of power, a result of creation, and a wonder of art. A miracle of power, a result of creation, and a wonder of art. I mean being equipped with such wonderful arts, with all his limbs and everything about him being a miracle of power. Surely he has an important duty, right? He has an important purpose. He is created this way for that purpose. When he works toward that purpose, he ascends, he progresses, he reaches happiness. When he doesn't act in accordance with his duty, with his innate nature, he falls into misery, he declines. We can say he falls into wretchedness. So we will explain the secret of this awesome progress and decline of man in 5 points. This progress isn't just a small step up, and the decline isn't just a small step down. It's an awesome progress. I mean, spiritually, he can rise to such heights, or he can fall lower than an animal, even lower than that. He can degenerate. What are the secrets to this? There's no limit set, is there, for example? Of course, there's no limit. He can rise to the level of prophets, or he can sink to the level of Nimrods, Shaddads, and Antichrists. What's the secret to this? I mean, what are the fundamentals of his rise and fall? He says we will explain these in 5 points. 4th point, in this universe, man resembles a very delicate and precious child. In this universe, man resembles a very delicate and precious child. Just like a child is delicate and precious, if a breeze blows and he gets a little cold, he immediately gets sick and so on. Man is also like that, created as very delicate and precious. In this universe, man resembles a very delicate and precious child. In his weakness, there is a great strength, and in his helplessness, a great power. For example, if a child were left to himself, he couldn't feed himself, he couldn't meet his needs, he would perish. Likewise, if God Almighty did not come to man's aid in his weakness and helplessness, if he did not show mercy, if he left man to his own devices, man couldn't meet any of his needs in this world either. He too would perish and be gone. There is a great strength in his weakness and a great power in his helplessness. I mean, his weakness attracts the strength of a being who pities him, who has compassion and mercy on him. His helplessness, again, attracts the power of a being who has mercy on him. In that way, there is a great strength in his weakness and a great power in his helplessness. For instance, right now, for us to be able to live in this universe, for example, the sun has to be created over there. It has to be made to revolve around us. Do we have the power to create that sun or the strength to make it spin? No. So some other being is doing this for us. Yes, right? The oxygen we breathe in has to be regulated when it's, of course, for instance, are we the ones creating oxygen? Are we creating the air? Are we regulating it? Do we have any part in that? No. But someone is meeting these needs for us. God says, if I don't do this, he says this one can't do it himself, he would cease to exist. That's why He has mercy on us. He provides for our needs. There's a great strength in His weakness and a great power in His helplessness, because it is through the strength of that weakness and the power of that helplessness that these beings have been made subservient to Him. I mean, there is a being who makes them subservient. For example, we use the ox as an example, right? A tiny child can take a huge ox and pull it by its rope. If that ox weren't made subservient to him, could that child pull it by its rope? Forget the child, even huge men, right? During the festival of sacrifice, it runs away and you can't control it. Who is it that makes it subservient there? The child? No. The child doesn't have the strength to make it subservient anyway. The one who makes it subservient is the grace and mercy of God Almighty. That weakness, I mean, everything is like that. The entire universe has been made subservient to us. Why? It is through the strength of that weakness and the power of that helplessness that these beings have been made subservient to Him. If man, understanding his weakness, were to pray with his words, his state, his actions, and his manner, and knowing his helplessness, were to ask for help, he would, while offering thanks for that subjugation, succeed in his aims, and his goals would be so submitted to him that with his own power he couldn't achieve even a 10,000th part of it. If man understands his weakness, saying, "Yes, I am not the one who makes these trees bear fruit. I am not the one who makes this honey bee produce honey. I am not the one who makes this cow produce milk. I wasn't even aware that the cow was making milk. I am not the one who makes the chickens lay eggs. I am not the one who causes all this subservience in the entire universe. I am helpless. I am weak." And then for his future needs, he again prays to God Almighty with his words, his state, and his actions, and knowing his helplessness, asks for help, saying, "Yes, my Lord, I am helpless, weak. I exist in this universe as infinitely helpless, weak, and poor. You are the one who meets all my needs," and thus asks for his needs from him again, knowing his helplessness. Then, while offering thanks for that subjugation, when we say thanks, we mean thanks for blessings, but it seems we also need to be thankful for the subjugation, to give thanks for the sun being made subservient to us, for the clouds, the air, the water, the soil. So while offering thanks for that subjugation, he would succeed in his aims, and his goals would be so submitted to him that with his own power, he couldn't achieve even a fraction of it. If God were to say, heaven forbid, "All right, I'm leaving you to your own devices. Go on, continue your life on your own," we would have no say over the cow, nor the chicken, nor the soil, nor the air, nothing. Of all the creatures and beings currently made subservient to us, we wouldn't succeed with even 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in 10,000 of them. Hundreds, thousands of trees are subservient to us. We couldn't make a single tree subservient, right? With his own power, he couldn't achieve even a fraction of it. Only sometimes he mistakenly attributes a goal achieved through the prayer of his state of being to his own power. For example, a man goes and works in the field, in the vineyard, in the garden, sprays pesticides and so on. Then God Almighty gives the blessings, and he might say, "I worked for it, I made it happen." That's wrong again. You prayed there, and God Almighty gave it to you. It's still not your power. Did you contribute to the making, the creation of the apples while standing at the foot of the tree? You just went there afterwards. I mean, let's say, for example, there's a road we always travel on, right? And on that road, if something valuable suddenly appears before us, right there, boom, we'd stop in our tracks. Yes, we'd pay attention to it, we'd pick it up. If other minerals come out from under it, we'd take those too. We'd be so happy, wouldn't we? Yes. Well, in life's events, seeing the trace of God Almighty. But that's just it. It becomes routine. Seeing the trace of God Almighty is just like that. Of course, you have to break the routine. By constantly seeing it, by seeing the fruit on the tree, you start to say, fruit just grows on trees. Yes, it becomes routine. But the wood is still wood. The tree is still the same tree. And we will break that routine with contemplation by reading the RİSALE-İ with a contemplative mind. It's not in the big guy at the cooperative either. Of course, not him either. For example, the strength in the weakness of a chick makes the mother hen attack a lion. Now there's a chick, and a lion comes. The mother sees that her child, her chick, can't protect itself, so she attacks the lion. It even says she'll risk her own head against a dog based on observation, the one who gives her that mercy. I mean, even though the hen is cowardly, God gives her the courage to protect her young. Again, it's because of the weakness in her chick. If the chick were able to protect itself, hypothetically, that subservience wouldn't happen. Because it is weak, God makes the mother subservient. The strength in the weakness of a chick makes the mother hen attack a lion, the newborn cub of a lion's cub, just born, still a baby. It makes that savage and hungry lion subservient to itself, leaving it hungry while it itself is full. I mean, the lion doesn't eat the meat it finds, but gives it to its cub. Normally a lion wouldn't give it to anyone, but there, God makes it subservient. This is a point worthy of attention, a strength in weakness, and a display of mercy worthy of contemplation. Just as a pampered child, through crying or asking or with a sad expression, succeeds in getting what he wants, and powerful people become so subservient to him that he couldn't obtain 1 in 1,000 of those desires with 1,000 times his strength. We had a friend when we were at a boarding high school. He said, when I was a kid, he says, at 2 in the morning, I started demanding a banana. He says, my father got up at 2 in the morning and drove 30 kilometers. The shops were closed at night. From somewhere 30 kilometers away, he found a banana, came back, and brought it to me. A father at 2 o'clock in the morning, in a cold country, what is that? Is it because he's afraid of the child? Because of what he did? No. Because the child is helpless and weak. Because he cried. Because he did that. Based on his helplessness and weakness, the father becomes subservient, just as a pampered child, through crying or asking or with a sad expression. When a child cries, he gets whatever he wants. I mean, is crying a strength? It's a sign of helplessness, but it subjugates strength through his crying or asking or with a sad expression. He pouts his lips, does a little something, and you say, okay, everything is yours. Or with a sad expression, he succeeds in getting what he wants, and powerful people become so subservient to him that he couldn't obtain 1 in 1,000 of those desires with 1,000 times his strength. Like a little sultan at home, right? Everyone flutters around him like a moth to a flame. This means that since weakness and helplessness stir up compassion and protection for him, he makes heroes subservient to himself with his tiny finger. What's the secret here? The child is helpless, weak. On the other side, there are compassionate parents. The child's helpless and weak state stirs up that compassion and mercy towards the child. This time, because they stir up compassion and protection for him, he makes heroes subservient to himself with his tiny finger. The child's finger is tiny. He raises his finger. Can he do anything with that finger? But that finger makes everyone revolve around him. He makes heroes subservient to himself with his tiny finger. Or think of the opposite. For example, our parents get old, they end up in the hospital, have surgery, become bedridden, and so on. You see all their relatives, their children, all fluttering around them. Does that mother have any power or strength? No. She is shown compassion, mercy. They think she can't do anything on her own now, she'll be miserable, and so her helplessness and weakness make those around her subservient. It's not because of her power or strength. Likewise, in the universe, the reason the entire universe, from A to Z, is subservient to us, is made to serve us, is because of our helplessness and weakness. Otherwise, if it weren't made subservient, we couldn't provide any of these things and couldn't live for even a minute, right? Now, if such a child, by denying that compassion and accusing that protection, were to say with foolish pride, I am subjugating these people with my own strength, he would certainly get a slap. Then they would say, all right then, we'll step back. Go ahead, you do these things yourself. And that would be a huge slap for him. He would lose everything. So too, if man, in a way that denies the mercy of his Creator and accuses his wisdom in the form of ingratitude for blessings, like Korah, when the tax collectors were coming, what did he say? I earned this with my own knowledge and my own power. If he says that, he certainly makes himself deserving of a slap of torment, right? The earth splits open, and he and all his wealth, his camels, his caravan, sink into the ground, right? He certainly makes himself deserving of a slap of torment. This means that this visible dominion of humanity, the progress of humankind, and the perfections of civilization are not through attraction, not through victory, not through struggle. This visible dominion of humanity, the progress of humankind, and the perfections of civilization, I mean, when you look at humanity, its situation in the world appears like a dominion. Yes. For example, all creatures serve him. Everything has been made subservient. He gets on a plane and goes. Then, the tree didn't bear fruit, so he cuts it down. Yes, I mean, he was created as the vicegerent on earth, created as a sultan. Everything has been made subservient to him, serving him, the dominion of humanity. Then, the progress of humankind. For example, think of the cars now. Think of the cars 100 years ago or 500 years ago. What brings about this human progress, right? For example, there were wheels 1,000 years ago and there are wheels now. What is this progress with the wheel? Or say the treatment methods in hospitals 100, 200, 300 years ago compared to now. How did they communicate back then? With smoke signals. Now it's with cell phones, the internet. Right now, for instance, you used to write and send a letter. It would take a week to arrive. Now you press a button and it arrives instantly. AI will even write the letter for you now. This advancement, this progress, what causes it? Again, due to man's helplessness and weakness. The perfections of civilization, I mean the cities 100 years ago, 500 years ago, and then schools, factories, this human progress, these perfections, what aren't they from? Not through attraction. It's not that humans attracted this dominion. Not through victory. They haven't conquered and ruled everything. Not through struggle. Not through fighting and battling. Rather, it has been made subservient to him for his weakness. The entire universe, all beings, have been made subservient to him for his weakness. He has been aided for his helplessness. The sun rushes to our aid. Everything rushes to our aid because of our helplessness. He has been helped, and for his poverty, it has been bestowed upon him. And for his ignorance, it has been inspired in him. For example, all discoveries and inventions. If the man already knew, he would just do it. For example, the light bulb. If Edison already knew, he would just make it. He is ignorant, he doesn't know. As he works and works, God accepts his work, his effort, as an active prayer and inspires him, and then he makes it. All inventions and discoveries are the work of inspiration. For his ignorance, he has a need, and for his ignorance, it has been inspired in him, and for his need, it has been bestowed upon him as a bounty. And the reason for that dominion is not power and strength and knowledge, but rather the Lord's compassion and kindness and divine mercy and wisdom, which have made things subservient to him. So, does man have the power and strength to dominate everything? No. It's not that things recognize him either. So what is it? Because of his helplessness, because of his poverty, he has a Lord who is merciful and compassionate towards him, and he is the one who makes things subservient. It is the Lord's compassion and kindness and divine mercy and wisdom which have made things subservient to him, made things serve him. Yes, a man who is defeated by creatures like a scorpion without a chest and a snake without feet. Look, this is man's normal state. A chestless scorpion, a footless snake. How easily a person can be defeated, right? I mean, he can't control them. He can't command them. But for such a man, the one who clothes him in silk from a tiny worm and feeds him honey from a poisonous insect is not his own power. The one who clothes him in silk from a tiny worm works, the silkworm, and makes silk fabrics for us, or the threads to make fabric. Who makes it do that? The one who clothes him in silk from a tiny worm and feeds him honey from a poisonous insect? Normally, a honeybee carries poison in its stinger, right? Without mixing its poison into the honey, it offers us that healing honey. The one who feeds him honey from a poisonous insect is not his own power, but rather the subjugation by the Lord and the bounty of the most merciful, which are the fruits of his weakness. Yes, seeing this and realizing, who is it that makes these honeybees serve us, to make such healing honey for us? It is God Almighty, right? We should see it and be grateful. Oh man, since this is the reality, leave pride and egoism. Now, for there to be pride, to be egoism, you need to have something of your own. You need to have some skill, some perfection, some quality. What is your quality? You are helpless, weak, poor. The whole universe serves you. You have no part in this. So there's no reason to be proud, to be egotistical. You know, if you were strong, powerful, if you had something, then you could be proud. So what then? Seeing all your helplessness and weakness, if you have any unjust pride, any unjust egoism, any sense of ownership, leave it. You don't have a right to it anyway, but if you've made a mistake, leave it. At the court of the divine, declare your helplessness and weakness with the tongue of seeking aid, and your poverty and needs with the tongue of supplication and prayer. At the court of the divine, I mean within this universe, seeing the divinity of God Almighty, present and watchful in his presence, at his court, declare your helplessness and weakness with the tongue of seeking aid. Yes, my Lord, I am helpless, I am weak. You are the owner of power, the owner of might. Help me, my Lord. And your poverty and needs, your poverty with supplication and prayer. My Lord, provide for my needs. Give me the things I need. Like this, declare your poverty and needs with the tongue of supplication and prayer, and show that you are a servant, and by saying, God is sufficient for us, and he is the best disposer of affairs, rise up. God is sufficient for us, and he is the best disposer of affairs. Is there anyone other than God who creates and subjugates everything around us, from atoms to stars? There is no one else. Has He alone been sufficient for everything? He has. Therefore, He will be sufficient for everything of ours from now on. By saying God is sufficient for us and He is the best disposer of affairs, rise up. So rising up depends on this, right? When a person sees the truth, when he comprehends the truth, when he acts in accordance with the truth, he rises spiritually, doesn't he? Also, do not say, I am nothing. What importance do I have that this universe should be intentionally made subservient to me by an absolutely wise one, and that a universal thanksgiving should be demanded of me? Now, up to this point, we've understood that we are helpless, weak, poor, and that God has given us everything: the universe, civilization, perfections, progress, out of His mercy. But here, a question might arise. Okay, God gave it. He made it subservient. But what am I? Who am I that He made this vast universe subservient to me? What is my special quality? What could my value be? Right? Okay, I get it. It's true. But why? Why does He make it subservient? What's the reason for that? Do not say, I am nothing. What importance do I have that this universe should be intentionally made subservient to me by an absolutely wise one, and that a universal thanksgiving should be demanded of me? Because although in respect of yourself and your form, you are tantamount to nothing. I mean, when you look at what belongs to you, your own essence, not the bounties of God Almighty, but when we look at our own essential nature, you are tantamount to nothing. You are helpless, weak, poor, tantamount to nothing. But from the point of view of your duty and rank, you are an attentive spectator of this majestic universe. I mean, God Almighty has given you eyes, intellect, consciousness, so you can observe this entire universe, right? Right now, atoms are being observed, cells are being observed, all of a person's organs, trees, everything is being observed. Not an inch is left unexamined, all the way to the stars. You are an attentive spectator of this majestic universe, an eloquent speaking tongue for these wise beings. When you look at this universe, you are able to speak in a way that is in accord with the reality of this universe, right? An eloquent speaking tongue for these wise beings. I mean, for example, if you were to say nature or coincidence, it wouldn't be eloquent. But when you say that this entire universe has been created from beginning to end with the names and attributes of God Almighty, with His manifestations, you have spoken in accord with the reality of the universe. You have uttered an eloquent statement, an eloquent speaking tongue. This is what makes us valuable. God has equipped us so much, made us recipients of so many blessings, so that we will do these things. And an understanding student of this book of the universe. The universe was created in the form of a book, and he can understand the meanings contained in that book. Can't he? For example, when he looks at a tree, he contemplates, why are the fruits on this tree so beautiful, so tasty, so pleasant? What is its meaning? God is expressing His mercy, His existence, His compassion, His kindness to us. These words, the words of the tree, the words of the fruit, express this meaning, and he is able to study it. Or when he looks at the stars, he can understand that they express God's power, that each realm expresses the names of God Almighty. An understanding student of this book of the universe, and an astonished overseer of these glorifying creatures. With their tongues of state, they are mentioning the names of God Almighty. An astonished overseer of these glorifying creatures, for example, in the first branch of the 24th word, there are beautiful examples of this. And you are like a respectful foreman over these worshipping works of art. Yes, O man, in respect of your vegetative corporeality and your animalistic self, if you live only with animalistic feelings, If you remain in your plant-like physical existence, then you are truly a wretched part, a contemptible particle, a poor creature, a weak animal, tossing and turning amidst the waves of all the terrifying flowing beings. But with the light of faith, which contains the radiance of divine love, with the light of faith, which contains the radiance of divine love. Now, what does faith contain? The radiance of divine love. Now, you believe in God, right? You believe in God. Who is God? The one who created you, who has compassion for you, who gives you so many blessings. What happens? Because you believe in such a God, that faith contains love for God, with the light of faith, which contains the radiance of divine love, and with the training of Islam, which is illuminated by it. I mean, while living Islam, for example, while praying, while fasting, our worship shines with the light of faith, doesn't it? With the light of faith and the training of Islam, which is illuminated by it. Both faith makes the reality of Islam shine, and Islam illuminates us. We can think of it in both ways, perfected by the training of Islam, which is illuminated by the light of faith. So, faith and Islam lead us toward perfection. In the dimension of humanity, you are a sultan within your servanthood. Yes, I mean, you exist within the universe, but you have believed in the being who created the universe. You have obeyed his commands. In this way, you are a sultan in the dimension of humanity, a sultan within your servanthood, and a universal whole within your particularity. You are a tiny being, but the truths in your heart and mind encompass the entire universe. You are universal to the extent that you can reach the world beyond and know God, love Him. You contain the worship of all creatures within your own worship. In that sense, you are universal. You are a universe within your smallness. I mean, just as He has fit the universe into the world, God can place a meaning as vast as the universe into the heart of a person. You are a universe within your smallness, and within your contemptibility, your station is so great, and your sphere of supervision so vast an overseer, that perhaps you're standing in a half square meter space, but you can think as vast as the entire visible world. You are so vast an overseer that you can say, "My all-merciful Lord has made the world a home for me." What did my all-merciful Lord do, Murat? He made the world a home for me. He made a home as big as the whole world and gave it to me. The moon and the sun, a lamp for my home. For example, the sun illuminates the day, and at night it becomes a detailed night light, right? We even have a night light. He even made the stars its little candles. The moon and the sun, a lamp for my home, and spring a bouquet of roses, and summer a table of blessings, and He made the animals my servants, and He has made the plants the ornate furnishings of that home. Yes, in conclusion, if you listen to your lower self and Satan, you will fall to the lowest of the low. I mean, if you listen to your lower self and Satan here, and don't see all this subservience, and think that you did everything yourself, or that it's nature and so on, that idea in your head, that thought, would be such a base thing, wouldn't it? It would make you fall to the lowest of the low. If you listen to your lower self and Satan, you will fall to the lowest of the low. If you listen to the truth and the Quran, you will rise to the highest of the high and become a beautiful calendar of the universe. You know, like he said, an eloquent speaking tongue. So the beautiful universe would surely have a beautiful interpreter. And surely you would become a person who sees and understands these beauties in the same way. You would have responded to this beauty with beauty. Just as it says in the 24th word, God Almighty has created everything beautifully, arranged it beautifully, and has it perform beautiful services It says, don't mix in nature and coincidence, don't make it ugly, don't create ugliness, don't be ugly. If you understand the truth according to reality and exist in that way, you will rise to the highest of the high within the universe and become a beautiful calendar of the universe. The meaning of calendar can be thought of as having 365 pages. Everything that exists in a year is found in that calendar. Similarly, all the meanings in the entire universe can be found in the human spirit. It can be thought of this way. It can also be considered from the word kuvam, consistency, perfection. When something reaches its perfect consistency, it becomes perfect, right? So when a person, with all their faculties, their thoughts, their heart, is in perfect balance, it becomes like that. Yes. Now let's read some parts from the collection related to the fourth point. As we have mentioned in many places, prayer is of three kinds. The first kind of prayer is with the tongue of potential. All grains and seeds pray to the all-wise Creator with the tongue of potential, saying, "Give us growth, so that we may display in detail the inscriptions of your names. Turn our small reality into a large reality of an ear of grain or a tree." Also, one type of prayer with this tongue of potential is this. The gathering of causes is a prayer for the creation of the effect. That is, the causes assume a state, and that state becomes like a tongue of disposition, and they pray to and ask from the all-powerful, the majestic one, for the effect. For example, water, heat, soil, and light assume a state around a seed, and that state is a tongue of prayer that says, "Our Creator, make this seed into a tree." Now you put the seed in the soil, this tiny little seed. It needs to be transformed into a big tree. I mean, it's going to become a huge factory, a fruit factory. It will take in mud with its roots, light from the sun, oxygen from the air. It will process it all and make beautiful fruits on its branches, a huge factory. Now this factory, it requires knowledge, it requires power, it requires skill, it requires expertise, right? To produce something like this. Now who are the workers present there? Soil, water, air, sun. Is there anything else? No. Now given what they do, can one say, I brought it to this point and it happened? What are they? So what they are saying is, you are saying, oh God, look, I have fulfilled the conditions. The rest is up to you. The essential power that makes it a tree, there is the manifestation of divine power. For example, water, heat, soil, and light assume a state around a seed. And that state is a tongue of prayer that says, our Creator, make this seed into a tree. Because that tree, which is a wondrous miracle of power, what is a tree? It contains a factory, a machine, right? And its exterior is also beautiful, artistic. That tree, which is a wondrous miracle of power, cannot be attributed to those unconscious, inanimate, simple materials. Thus, the gathering of causes is a type of prayer. So if we connect it to our topic, can you say, this orchard, this vegetable garden is my work? You can't. You may have worked there, you may have brought the causes together, but the one who will create the tomato, the potato, whatever, is still the power of God, right? There is still a subservience there. The second kind of prayer is with the tongue of innate need, by which all living beings receive their needs and wants, which are beyond their power and will, from unexpected places at the appropriate time. This is a kind of prayer to the all-merciful Creator. There's also prayer with the tongue of need. I mean, since creatures have a conscious need, for example, even if a child at home doesn't say, Dad, bring me bread, you know he needs it, right? You bring it to him without him asking. I mean, living beings have needs. And the fact that they have needs without asking becomes a prayer. We are also created based on our needs. That is a prayer with the tongue of need, because a wise and merciful one sends them what they need from places they don't know, beyond their power and will, at the opportune moment. For example, what do we need in winter? Vitamin C. You see, God Almighty sends oranges, lemons, grapefruit, for instance. What do we need in the summer, brother? Watermelon, cantaloupe, and so on. Look, in the summer, whenever we need something, God Almighty sends it. Did we draw a model of a cantaloupe or watermelon and place an order with God Almighty? There's nothing like that, because a wise and merciful one sends them what they need from places they don't know, beyond their power and will, at the opportune moment, or the moment a child is born, right? His immune system isn't developed yet, etc. And that white, pure, nutritious milk is immediately sent for his need. Their hands cannot reach. This means that bestowal is the result of prayer. In short, what rises from the entire universe to the divine court is a prayer. Those that are causes ask for the effects from God. The third kind of prayer is the prayer of conscious beings within the sphere of need, and this is also of two types. If it reaches the level of desperation, or is perfectly suited to an innate need, or has come close to the tongue of potential, or is with the tongue of a pure, sincere heart, it is accepted with absolute majority, the tongue of desperation. I mean, when you're at your wit's end, out of sheer necessity, you implore in a way that God answers that prayer. I mean, He mostly answers. If it reaches the level of desperation, or is perfectly suited to an innate need, you are asking for something that is truly your innate need. If it is perfectly suited to an innate need and has come close to the tongue of potential. For example, say you are asking for knowledge and you are also using your potential accordingly, working for it. I mean, you adopt a position suitable for what you are asking for as potential. If it has come close to the tongue of potential, or is with the tongue of a pure, sincere heart, you pray to God with such a sincere, pure heart, then it is accepted with absolute majority, the majority of human progress. For example, during the time of rabies, someone emerges, works and works and works, and God Almighty bestows that cure upon him for the need of all humanity, the majority of human progress. Human progress has reached incredible points now, hasn't it? Yes. For example, now, 100 years ago, to meet someone, you had to go to them. Now you just pick up the phone from wherever you are. You can have a video call. Isn't that right? For example, you can talk to a brother in America 10,000 miles away, or your son in Istanbul. I mean, what is this? It's a grace from God again. You have a need, you have a desire, and God Almighty grants you that phone. Human progress. Yes, people work, but the one who inspires it, who makes the air subservient, who creates the metals in it, the properties of the phone, is again God Almighty. In the past, how did we travel somewhere, my dear friend? By ox cart, donkey, horse. Now you travel by trains with air suspension, by plane. I mean, God willing, maybe in the future you'll travel by teleportation. This human progress, what is it by? Again, by the grace of God. In the past, for example, they would perform surgery, they would anesthetize, they would tie the person down. There wasn't even an anesthetic. They would cut them open while they were alive in the 17th, 18th centuries. How much have hospitals and surgery techniques advanced now? Again, the one who advances them is God Almighty. I mean, things like computers, phones, and so on now are all again a result of God's blessing, a result of a prayer. We have a need, and as a result of our prayer, God gives, He bestows. The majority of human progress, in the past, for example, if you wanted to own the whole collection of works, what did you do? You wrote it by hand. You wrote it. When the collection was first printed, it was on textile machines, clattering away, being printed all night. Now you don't even need ink. The whole collection comes with a click on your phone. What is this? Human progress. This is again God's grace. The whole thing is in your pocket, right? I mean, if we go back 50, 100, 200, 500 years and compare the way of life of people then with people now, what human progress is becomes clear. What brought us from there to here? Let's think about it in every aspect, not just technology, but every aspect. All of it has been God's grace, His bounty. The majority of human progress and their discoveries are the result of a kind of prayer. The things they call the wonders of civilization and the matters they consider a source of pride for their discoveries are the result of a spiritual prayer. They have been asked for with a sincere tongue of potential and have been given to them. Prayers made with the tongue of potential and the tongue of innate need are also always accepted, provided there is no obstacle and they are within the required conditions. You know, we always think of God's blessings and give thanks, and we usually think of the food we eat, right? Yes. With this epistle, with this lesson, what happened? This technology is also a blessing. The current human progress is also a blessing. Look, were there apartment buildings in the past? Were there elevators in apartment buildings? Were there lamps? Was there electricity? What did they use for light? Gaslight. In every aspect, what are they all? They are all God's bounties, and they all require gratitude. If we were to give examples of this, we could give hundreds of examples of human progress, right? The second type is the well-known prayer. That is also of two kinds. One is active, one is verbal. For example, plowing a field is an active prayer. Sustenance is not from the soil. Rather, the soil is a door to the treasury of mercy. One knocks on the door of mercy, which is the soil, with a plow. One of the most pitiful and bizarre errors of human philosophy is this, that one's partial free will and volition are not even sufficient for the smallest and most obvious act, speaking. It cannot create it. It only pushes air into the points of articulation of letters. For example, some people can't speak. Then you realize, look, being able to speak is also a blessing. Come on, speak. The person can't speak. Look, we can speak, that's also a blessing from God. A person can't hear, but you can. He just pushes air into the points of articulation of letters. We think we are the ones speaking, for example. He only pushes air into the points of articulation of letters. And based on this partial earning, God Almighty creates those words, and He writes thousands of copies of it in the air, while man's hand is so short of such creation to give the name of human invention to a universal, miraculous act of power, a wonder that all the causes in the universe are helpless to perform. Anyone with an iota of consciousness understands what a huge mistake this is. Human invention. Whose invention is it actually? God's invention. What is the human's part in it? Human efforts are an active prayer. Based on that prayer, God Almighty bestows. Here's an example of this. The radio, which was discovered through a kind of divine inspiration as a sort of acceptance of their active prayers, to make a divine law that encompasses 100,000 wonders available for human use. And for this radio, which is a means for human use, they say to a poor, absolutely helpless person, so-and-so inventor invented the radio, and he discovered the force of electricity, and some gentlemen are even trying to invent a substance to read what's in people's heads. Yes, God Almighty created this universe as a guest house in which everything necessary and worthy for man has been created. Now we said radio, the air, okay? The air is hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, and other gases. If God Almighty hadn't given the air those properties, could you have made that radio work, right? If He hadn't created that law, those electromagnetic telecommunication waves in the air, if He hadn't created and executed the laws in the air that produced those wonderful results, could man have done this? No. Therefore, that is also a miracle of God's bounty. Look, the Master values the radio so much, doesn't he? I wonder what he would have said if he had seen the internet now, right? He probably knew, but of course, since that was what existed then, it shows the same result. Yes, God Almighty created this universe as a guest house in which everything necessary and worthy for man has been created. In the form of banquets, at certain times and ages, He bestows upon them His hidden blessings as a result of their inquiries stemming from the confluence of ideas, which is an active prayer. The air, for example, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, He had created the air in the same way, but those properties were hidden. For example, electricity existed then too. The property of electricity was still there, but the need for it arose in this age. God Almighty had it brought out in this age. The properties of substances and minerals, the laws, were always there, but the confluence of ideas and the prayers happened in this age. The need also arose in this age. That's why He bestows upon them His hidden blessings as a result of their inquiries stemming from the confluence of ideas, which is an active prayer. While it is necessary to give thanks for this, to look at it as the invention and skill of an ordinary helpless human, which is a form of ingratitude, and then to forget the wonders that are the result of a universal consciousness, knowledge, will, mercy, and bounty, and to show only a thin veil and attribute it to unconscious coincidence, nature, and inanimate matter, is to open the door to an absolute ignorance that is contrary to the essence of humanity, which is in the most perfect form. Therefore, it is essential to look at creatures with a literal meaning so that man can be human. So what happened? If we were to connect it to our topic, the dominion of humanity, human progress, the perfections of civilization, great bounties, great favors, behind them, underneath them, what is the cause? Who is it? We are weak. We are ordinary, helpless beings. And the creatures are like that too. Then it becomes clear that it is the grace and bounty of God Almighty. Then the door to being His servant opens, right? You realize that He alone gives you all these blessings. You receive from Him. Then you only become a servant to Him. You give up the pride of your own ego. So why has God Almighty bestowed so many bounties? Well, we have a great universal duty. That's why, having received all these blessings, what are we not going to do? We're not just going to take these blessings and sit back, right? We are made subservient to this extent so that we can perform those duties. For example, you make everything subservient to a child. Why? So that he can reach a goal, a purpose, a destination, right? Man also has such valuable duties. He has been sent to this world for a purpose. He is given this much subservience so that he can work towards that purpose. And if we work with those duties, we both rise, ascend spiritually, and God has hidden happiness there, right? He has hidden it within that. This earth, in terms of the multitude of creatures and being the dwelling, origin, factory, exhibition, and gathering place for hundreds of thousands of different species of living and souled beings that are constantly changing, has such great importance as the heart, center, summary, result, and definitive cause of this universe, that despite its smallness, it has been held equal to the great heavens. In the heavenly decrees, it is always said, and since man rules every part of this earth, of this nature, man came to the dominion of humanity again. He rules every part of this earth, of this nature. Does man rule every part? He goes and builds dams, makes roads, right? He makes dispositions, and he has dominion over most of its creatures, animals, plants, trees, the ground, everything. Man can intervene, and he makes most living beings subservient and gathers them around himself. And he so beautifully organizes, displays, and adorns most of his works of art with the geometry of his own desires and the principles of his needs, and gathers so many antique varieties in such places and embellishes them that he attracts not only the gazes of men and jinn, but also the attention and appreciation of the inhabitants of the heavens and the universe, and the approving gaze of the owner of the universe, thereby gaining a very great importance and value. And in this respect, being the wisdom of the creation of this universe, its great result, and its precious fruit. For example, if we read this 11th word in the coming days, God willing, it explains the wisdom behind the creation of this universe. And that wisdom points to man. He is the wisdom of the creation of this universe, its great result, and its precious fruit. And he shows with his sciences and arts that he is the vicegerent of the earth. And on the worldly plane, because he exhibits and organizes the miraculous arts of the maker of the universe so beautifully, what else does man do? For example, this technology, science, agriculture, and so on. For instance, a man grows flowers, hundreds of flowers, and displays them, exhibiting God's arts. And he extracts minerals and brings forth the marble and other things from underground. So because he reveals God's arts, he serves God's purpose. On the worldly plane, because he exhibits and organizes the miraculous arts of the maker of the universe so beautifully, the children of Adam are left in the world despite their rebellion and disbelief, and their punishment is delayed. And for this service, they are not annihilated, but see success. And since the children of Adam of this nature are, by temperament and creation, extremely weak and helpless, and despite being very few and poor, have limitless needs and pains, yet completely beyond their power and will, the whole globe of the earth has been made a storehouse for that human species, for every kind of mineral they need. We have mining engineers too. They have made the inside of mountains and the ground beneath a storehouse for every kind of mineral. God has stored them there, a treasury, and a warehouse for every kind of food, and a shop for every kind of goods that the human species will enjoy. There is such a powerful, wise, and compassionate disposer who looks after this human species, feeds them, and gives them what they want. You dig into the ground. Aha, I found coal. Well done. How did you find coal there? As if it was placed in your hand, right? Oh, I found oil. Congratulations on finding oil. I mean, should we congratulate the one who found it, or the one who created the oil and put it there, right? Oh, I found iron. I mean, God created it, put our needs there, and we congratulate the finder. Of course, they had their share of difficulties. Yes, that is, on one level. I mean, the creator, for example. A child opens the fridge. Aha, I found a banana. My friend, if someone hadn't put the banana there, what would you find? The one who brought it and put it there, created it and put it there first, that's why you find it. What does it do? We should think directly of God Almighty for every blessing. What happens then? You offer thanks for his subjugation. You understand your own helplessness and poverty. You see God's grace, bounty, and generosity, and accordingly, you enter into a state of servanthood. And that is the purpose, how God Almighty has created this vast universe for man like a palace, and sent the water of life from the sky to the earth, and made the earth and sky two servants to grow sustenance for people. Just as he has made it possible for every person to benefit from the fruits of every species found in other parts of the earth, he has also made the ship subservient to man, so that people can exchange their various products and secure all kinds of their livelihood. For example, the subservience of the ship. If God Almighty hadn't created something like a ship, making the seas subservient in the past, transportation, right? There were no trains, nothing. It was by ships, with the wind. We still use ships a lot, brother. Of course, in world trade, the cheapest and most efficient is the ship. You just push it and it goes. God Almighty created that buoyancy force and inspired the ship. This is another blessing. But how does it not sink in the water, right? Yes, I mean, he has given the sea the wind and the wood, such a state that the wind is a whip, the ship is a horse, and the sea lies like a desert beneath its feet. In addition to connecting people to the whole earth by means of the ship, he has also made rivers and large streams natural means of transport for man, and he has made the sun and the moon move, presenting to people the different colored blessings of the changing seasons and the important realities within them, creating them as two subservient servants and two helmsmen to turn that great wheel. He has also made the night and day subservient to man, making the night a covering for his life and the day a time for their livelihood and trade. So, after enumerating these divine blessings, the blessings of the day, the blessings of the night, after counting them like this, to show how vast a circle of blessings is directed towards man and how that circle is filled with countless blessings, let me read this verse with its meaning. And he gave you of all that you asked for. But if you were to count the favors of God, you would not be able to number them. Because whatever is not in hand, there is a need for, and what is not in hand is limitless. I mean, whatever has been created for our needs, and those are limitless. This means that the bounties are limitless. The summary shows that, with the tongue of potential and innate need, what does man have, Murat? He gave you toothpaste, he gave you the need for a brush. Yes. That is, for example, you need to walk. He gave you feet. You will speak. Eat. You need to chew. He gave you teeth. He gave you saliva in your mouth, a tongue to turn that food, a tongue so you can taste it. Whatever he has given everything we need. And you ask for what you don't have, and he gives that too. A new need arises. He gives that too. The divine blessing upon man cannot be counted. It is inexhaustible. Yes, since a table of blessings for man is the heavens and the earth, and some of the blessings on that table are things like the sun, moon, night, and day, then the blessings directed towards man are certainly beyond count. Yes, since they are beyond count, and these have been given based on our helplessness, our weakness, our poverty, there is no situation here for us to say, I did it, I made it happen. We must leave all egoism and become a servant to the being who gives these things, right? If we do that, we will attain a very valuable position in the sight of God Almighty. And God Almighty will not leave such a valuable being of His in sorrow and grief in the world. He will make him happy and blessed, give him eternity and permanence, and continue his state there. Therefore, he had said it was the formula for happiness, and he explained it that way. Glory be to you. We have no knowledge except what you have taught us. Verily, it is you, the all-knowing, the all-wise. For the sake of God, let us recite the opening chapter.